Hey guys, Ted from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Dave.
So today we're going to do a player tip talking about clerics are healers.
I want you guys to move on down to the description where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So back in the day, first edition, second edition, clerics really weren't overly diverse. You played a cleric and didn't matter who you really worshipped. You were just a cleric mechanically.
Yeah, all the clerics are the same.
Role-playing wise, you could really do whatever you wanted, but, it's like, oh, I'm playing a cleric of war, and, my god's favorite weapon is a longsword. He's chosen me to serve him, but because I'm a cleric, I can't use a longsword.
Right, back in those days, kids, bludgeoning weapons only.
So, moving into 3rd edition and later, you really got the ability to define your cleric based off of what his domains or who he's worshiping, and you get to make something that's different. But even now, people are still looked at as, well, you're the cleric, that means you're the healer, right? Clerics don't always need to be just, I'm a healer.
Yeah, we had recently done a GM 911, and the DM had did a follow-up and sent me a message about the game, which was cool. And one of the things he said in that message, though, was, I shouldn't have let, in session 0, I shouldn't have let the new player play an important role like the healer. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that just rubs me the wrong way a little bit, because, the fact that that's all the cleric is in the game is the healer. Guys, come on! The cleric is the fucking divine, is freaking divinely chosen by a deity, and is an emissary on the prime material plane of their power.
Yes,
they're not just the healer. And.
I look at a lot of people, they walk into in role-playing games, they walk into a church and they assume that every single person there has the ability to call upon their god and bestow magic and this and that, and that's even in a magic enriched D&D world, that's not the case. Yes, the paladin is this high on a pedestal thing.
If you're a paladin, you always have paladin abilities because you're a paladin, right? But if you're a priest, you don't always have cleric abilities.
If you're a priest, you are not necessarily a cleric, and whatever have you. And just because you're a cleric, it doesn't mean you're a priest.
Especially in this edition.
Like Nate's character in my game, even though he's on hiatus right now, he's a cleric. He was chosen by the god to serve him. He doesn't, he eventually learned knowledge religion, I think, but he didn't do any priestly stuff. He was no acolyte. He didn't go do this. He was a merchant and a noble.
Right, he wasn't trained to be a priest.
Right. So he's off doing this cleric-y stuff, serving this god, but he's no priest.
And you can literally not even know how to perform any of the rites and stuff. Mm-hmm. But then the other part of that, though, is you could have actually been raised up in the church. You could be, you live and breathe and die this deity, right? And whatever they're about, whether it's agriculture, crafting, or war, So
your doctrine.
Exactly. And frankly, I feel like if you're playing in a game and your cleric is, he's a cleric of a war deity. Mm-hmm. I don't think he thinks his role is combat medic. I think he might actually be offended if you said that.
I worship a deity of war. My place in battle is on the front lines. I'm killing just as much as you. And after the battle is over, if you're still standing and you're nice to me, I might deign to put you back together.
And the other thing too is you might have a cleric that has, his own idiosyncrasies. Maybe he won't heal the people in general, but in the party, without a small donation to the church. Maybe he only heals the faithful. Those who don't follow his God are unworthy of his God's his divine blessings. So there's a lot of different ways you can go with it, and it's not just cleric equals heal.
And if you have a cleric, like they have access to other spells, especially in 5th edition. Like if you want their healing, like they have 2 first level spell slots, healing word and cure wounds. Beyond that, every single other spell they've got is designed for other purposes. So they might, I'm going to cast Spiritual Hammer and Guiding Light, and I'm going to cast all these things, and by the time the battle's over, I got 2 spells left, guys. Who's the worst damaged? All right, you get a D8 and you get 2 die 8, and the rest of you can go lick your wounds with a bard.
Lick your wounds with a bard.
Like pray for his song of rest, and spend your hit dice, and that's about it.
Well, that's just it too. Like in 5th edition, like you don't actually need a cleric the way you used to anyway. Like as long as you can make it through the battle, you can kind of put yourselves back together.
Right. You've got the ability to take a rest and spend hit dice. You've got druids, clerics, bards, rangers, all of that, paladins, all have access to cure wounds. Whether they take it or not, that's on them. But
I actually feel like the party that because you guys are out there, the group that that figures that every role has to be filled. I feel like they when they do that and they make someone be the cleric. If I was that cleric, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not taking any heal. None. 0. War priest. Or god of crafting and peace and love or something. I was just stick it to them. But, I just hate that because it just takes away from the experience of the role-playing part of the game.
And that's what it is. I mean, it's a role-playing game, and there's that game comes with mechanics, but any DM who's worth his salt is going to be able to look at the people at his table, or the characters at his table, and say, how do I craft an adventure for these characters tonight? How do I deal with, you guys don't have anyone shady, sneaky in your party. Okay, well, then anything shady and sneaky that's going to be a requirement, well, I either have to tone that down, let them suck it up and deal with the consequences.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Or, adjust so that those type of things aren't there. Like, my party, the party that I'm running with, without Nate, you've still got a paladin, you've still got a druid. Now, the druid very rarely actually, is using his heal spells. But
or spells at all.
Well, and that has to do with the fact that he's a new player. I mean, he's 15 years old, so I mean he's still getting used to all of his options and whatnot. But the paladin knows what he's doing. And he frequently asks, like, okay, who's injured, or somebody will say, hey, can I get some healing here? And the paladin goes and does his thing. So I mean, I don't have to worry about that. But even when there's no cleric, you guys still have access to healing. So.
Yeah, you figure it out. But I guess. Well, I don't know if it's on topic or off topic, but the point is, like, the cleric character is so much more than the healing, and that should never be what defines them, unless you're a god of unless you worship a god of medicine and healing.
Right.
That shouldn't be what defines you.
And yes, if you are worshiping that god where your mission really is to heal the injured, to cure the sick
from your plate mail.
From your plate mail, you've got the ability to go out and do that kind of thing. Relieve the suffering, and there should be like a bit of euphoria at that, and you could really go over the top with it and have fun with it. But if you're playing like I'm doing the cleric of knowledge thing, I'm a spellcaster, and I do things in combat that are not just I'm going to sit there and heal. I tend to use cure wounds after the fact, or if somebody gets dropped, or if it's, this is looking really bad, I need to make sure you don't fall so that I don't fall. But I've got other options besides just sit there and be like, okay, I'm gonna stand behind my shield and my my armor
and be a heal bot.
And be a heal bot. It's like that's not me. Like,
it's also just a very boring character as well. There are so many different things you can do with all the classes in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, I mean, I just did an article last week on adding more class to your class, and I just touched on cleric. So cleric is one of those things that like.
So that article basically tells everyone how they can heal everybody and follow the fighter around. And,
no, but the part of the article series is to tell you how to do something different with the class that you might not have considered, and then I touch on each of the different backgrounds. So like the only one that really makes you be the priest is acolyte. Yeah. Everything else, like, you can take it in so many different directions. Imagine if you're...
Although you could do the soldier combat medic, because that's literally one of the options.
Yeah, you could. But, I mean, like, if I think of, okay, I'm playing a cleric and my background is soldier, then I'm really thinking that I'm a cleric of battle, a cleric of war. I'm a war priest. I want to be in the thick of it. Now, unless you take it the other direction that war sickens me and I turned away from that lifestyle, then you could do with medicine or life or peace and try to be the talky character. You're going to be the face and be able to use that background for that. But I mean, like, if you do, like, my favorite is, what if you were a sailor? Like, you could be a pirate of, wind, or you could be a pirate and, you worship, like, the wind or the water. You're on the waves and you're just as much a scurvy sea dog as everyone else on the ship, and
maybe even scurvier.
Maybe even scurvier. You could pull that whole thing of, like, all right, well, you're grievously injured. All right, well, you got to make a donation to get healing. All right, how much you got? The more grievous the injury, the
more it costs.
The more it costs. And, like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that type of character. It would be loads of fun to play if you're doing, like, that kind of seafaring situation.
Yeah, and if you're going to play the Healbot character, try and at least make it interesting. Like, find some way to model that character off of something that will actually give the character some character.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm thinking of like MASH, right? The old TV show. Some of you guys may not even have any idea what I'm talking about. F you all. But no, like MASH, and you where you actually have combat medics running into the field and treating the wounded.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they're not even fighting. Maybe they don't even really carry weapons. Like, but they're I just envisioned the Red Cross symbols all over the character, but and he's in the thick of it.
Right, and beyond that though, like, you can, like, give him a personality so that, like, there is something more to those layers. You want to sit back and you talk about MASH. Well, what if all right, well, are you the guy who's stuffed up and snooty and thinks he's the best, and he's been around all these other medics and he thinks he's the best? Or are you the guy who's the jokester who uses jokes and puns and things to ease the tension because he literally sees people live and die on his table, and if he doesn't go that direction, he's gonna break. Yeah. He's gonna break from the stress.
Laugh or cry. Yeah.
So, like, there's so many different ways, and every single character that you play has the ability to get twisted in all these different directions. So, like, no, clerics. I'm cleric does not mean I'm the healer. Get that out of your mind. Don't let your table think that. And the next time someone says, "All right, you're playing the healer, play a cleric," and as Dave says, don't take the cure. Just
no healing at all. You guys, let us know what you think about clerics and how you play them in your game. Share your more interesting ones down in the comments below, and while you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out funny memes over on Facebook.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.
Where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So back in the day, first edition, second edition, clerics really weren't overly diverse. You played a cleric, and didn't matter who you really worshipped. You were just a cleric mechanically.
Yeah, all the clerics are the same.
Role-playing wise, you could really do whatever you off of what his domains or who he's worshiping, and you get to make something that's different. But even now, people are still looked at as, well, you're the cleric, that means you're the healer, right? clerics don't always need to be just, I'm a healer.
Yeah, we had recently done a GM 911, and the DM had did a follow up and said,
Hey guys, Ted from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Dave.
So today we're going to do a player tip talking about clerics are healers.
Why don't you guys move on down to the description?
Wanted, but it's like, oh, I'm playing a cleric of war, and my god's favorite weapon is a longsword. He's chosen me to serve him, but because I'm a cleric, I can't use a longsword.
Right, back in those days, kids, bludgeoning weapons only.
So moving into 3rd edition and later, you really got the ability to define your cleric based on
a message about the game, which was cool. And one of the things he said in that message, though, was, I shouldn't have let, in session 0, I shouldn't have let the new player play an important role like the healer. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that just rubs me the wrong way a little bit. Because,